Well, hey there, I'm Joshua Johnson. It's great to be with you on this Thursday, April 28th. And here's some of what we're talking about tonight. People in Kiev heard 2 explosions today, but the U.S. is preparing to send a lot more military aid to Ukraine. We're live in Kiev with the latest, and you'll meet a pro-democracy advocate who lives there. Some long-awaited news for parents with young children. Those kids might soon be eligible for a COVID shot. More on the push to vaccinate everyone. How are your student loans these days? If you have less than $50,000 in debt, President Biden is considering some forgiveness. We'll have his latest remarks on easing that burden. Also, California's farmers feed the nation, but the state's severe drought has them struggling. Lester Holt has their story in our special series, The Climate Challenge. And the Winter Olympics are long over, but life for the Olympians goes on, including through some very dark times. Figure skater Vincent Zhou from Team USA joins us ahead. Let us begin with the latest investments to end the war in Ukraine. The UN is investing time on the ground right now. The U.S. is also investing money, lots of it, especially on weapons. And it's easy to see why. Today, 2 missiles struck Kiev after a few days with no strikes. We caught the aftermath on the ground, and you can see the smoke on the horizon there. Now, Ukrainian officials say the missiles hit a residential building. At least 3 victims have been hospitalized. There's no word of any deaths from these strikes. All of this happened while the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, was in Kiev. He attended peace talks with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. This week, the Secretary General met with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow, hoping to negotiate a peaceful resolution. As for the American investment of money, that is growing fast. In fact, Congress is giving President Biden more leeway to send whatever he wants to Ukraine, whenever he wants to send it. Today, the president asked Congress to approve an aid package for Ukraine worth $33 billion. Now, lawmakers already approved $13.6 billion of aid last month. Here's how that aid is broken up, and this latest request is expected to last through September. Mr. Biden says doing too little would be much worse.
The cost of this fight is not cheap, but caving to aggression is going to be more costly if we allow it to happen.
Also today, Congress passed the Ukraine Democracy Lend-Lease Act. It clears the way for President Biden to lend or lease military equipment to Ukraine with far fewer restrictions. You might say that Congress has handed the president a more or less blank check to equip the Ukrainians. And World War II buffs may know that phrase, Lend-Lease. That is how President Franklin Delano Roosevelt helped support the Allies in Europe while maintaining America's official neutrality. So the U.S. government is making some big moves to assist Ukraine. How will those moves change things on the ground? And what's happening there now? NBC's Cal Perry starts us off from Kiev tonight. And Cal, first of all, what more do we know about those missile strikes from earlier today?
Well, we can update the toll in just the past hour. We're hearing it's now at least 10 people wounded in that strike. The attacks happening just shortly after 8 p.m., and they were brazen in their timing. It happened, as according to the prime minister here in Ukraine, while the UN Secretary General was speaking to the Ukrainian prime minister about how to end this war. According to the president of Ukraine, there was at least 5 cruise missiles aimed and fired at Kyiv. Only 2 of them, we believe, reaching that target, though even when the ones that are shot out of the air they often will land in residential areas as well. Video from the scene and our colleague Aaron McLaughlin making it to the scene earlier tonight show that residential building quite heavily damaged. This is the first airstrikes in about 10 days here in the capital, but it comes timed with comments by the Russian president that he would continue to target the capital as those flow of weapons continues, and as we see and hear more about these explosions on the Russian side of the border, Joshua.
The UN Secretary General, as we mentioned, was visiting. How has that visit gone, and were there any big headlines, any results from that trip?
Well, he went to all of the obvious places. He went to Bucha, he went to Irpin, these suburbs in and around Kiev that saw the heaviest fighting, that have seen these massacres, what now are becoming war crimes. He tried to personalize the visit. He tried to talk about how he thought of his own family when visiting these locations. But the backdrop to this visit was not all positive. The Ukrainian government was very critical of the Secretary General for visiting Moscow first. He was in Moscow a few days ago. He came here yesterday. There has been a conversation in this country about the role that the UN has to play here. You have, again, these massacres taking place on the ground here. You have continued fighting in the east. Speaking very frankly, you have the United States that is increasing the pace of which they are getting weapons into this country. So it really is just the UN today calling for a cessation of violence, calling for a ceasefire. If there's one headline, it's probably that the Secretary General carried with him a message to the Ukrainian government that the Russian president was willing to evacuate sections of Mariupol. I don't think anybody here believes that that's a realistic possibility. We've heard this in the past from the Russians, and then they usually just follow it up by shelling those civilian areas in that city. So, again, a visit that was very important for the United Nations, a visit that's very important to the Ukrainian people, but it comes on the backdrop of a lot of serious questions being asked about how effective the UN can be in stopping this war, Joshua.
And with regard to the situation on the ground, the reason why these new measures are moving through the U.S. government, what is the situation in Bucha like right now?
So Bucha is going through the worst of times and having to do the impossible, which is having to reunite and try to identify the bodies of people killed in the massacre and killed in the violence, and then trying to link them up with their families. We spent the day at that main morgue in Bucha, where, again, there's more than 400 bodies there, and some of these bodies are very difficult to identify. They've been mutilated. People have been tortured. And so you have families coming to that site, trying to work with French investigators. It is an internationally led effort to try to process these bodies, to try to count the death in the war. And you see here this woman trying to find her loved one, and she did so in that truck. And the two gentlemen behind her, Joshua, are American volunteers, veterans who came here on their own money to try to help people here on the ground, and they're doing so. I'll play you a little bit of sound. The first sound you're going to hear from is from one of those American volunteers. The second bit of sound is from one of the organizers of this international effort. Take a listen.
It's unlike anything I've ever experienced. It's probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do, not just with transporting and moving the bodies, but just to see the family members in pain. It rips my heart out. It's just hard. It's hard, very hard.
We are talking about 412 dead on the Bucha community and more than 1,000 in Kiev region. Can you imagine amount of relatives who are hurt by this Russian war here?
And so this is what the president of Ukraine, what the Ukrainian armed forces are weighing as this war carries on. They're making battlefield gains in some areas of this country and pushing the Russians back, but it comes at a huge cost, and it comes at the cost, obviously, of lives and of lives altered forever, Joshua.
Thank you, Cal. That's NBC's Cal Perry starting us off tonight from Kiev. Now, we mentioned President Biden's aid request, $33 billion. Where would that money go? $20 billion, as we showed you on this chart, $20 billion would be for military assistance. About $8.5 billion would be for economic assistance, $3 billion in humanitarian aid, and $500 million to help with domestic food production. If Congress approves this aid package, the Biden administration plans to send it over time, not all at once, and the funding is meant to last until September. Joining us now is Peter Zalmayev, director of the Eurasia Democracy Initiative. It's an international nonprofit that promotes democracy and human rights. Mr. Zalmayev, welcome. Good to have you with us.
Greetings.
So it looks like President Biden is about to get access to a lot more money to support Ukraine. Here is part of what the president said this morning at the White House about that. Watch.
Investing in Ukraine's freedom and security is a small price to pay to punish Russian aggression, to lessen the risk for future conflicts. You know, throughout our history, we've learned that when dictators do not pay the price for their aggression, they cause more chaos and engage in more aggression. They keep moving. And the cost, the threats to America and the world keep rising. We can't let this happen.
So President Biden said that it is a small price to pay for the benefit to Western democracies. How do you see it?
Well, I agree with him. We're already, the United Nations estimates that Ukraine's economy will shrink next year up to 45%. This is going to be a tremendous toll. Ukrainians, obviously, we have lost hundreds of billions of dollars in infrastructure, thousands of lives. 5 million Ukrainians have left the country. So while Ukrainians are happy to be, so to speak, the last, nail in the coffin of the Russian Empire, we want to keep the country, viable economically. During this whole time, we have been concerned here that the strategy of the United States may be just a slow bleed, use Ukrainians to bleed Russia, slowly to incapacitate its army. With this step, with $33 billion announced, and now Congress has voted to approve the land lease, for Ukraine, the hope is that, we will be able to achieve victory sooner than we thought.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you about that. Today, the House passed the Ukraine Democracy Defense Lend-Lease Act. History buffs will remember that term Lend-Lease because FDR had a Lend-Lease Act in World War II that gave him tremendous powers over providing military aid to the Allies to fight the Nazis in Europe. It seems like the president is about to get a tremendous amount of authority and what is kind of a blank check in some ways to send military aid to Ukraine to help fight Russia. How do we manage the cost? It's very easy to throw money at this problem, but these are taxpayer dollars we're talking about.
Well, indeed, but President Biden's central point, I think, was correct that, if we let this go on, longer, the ultimate price we'll have to pay will be much, much more because, Ukrainians have been saying all along, the previous president, President Poroshenko, President Zelensky, is that Putin will not stop at Ukraine's borders. What Ukraine is doing right now is holding down the fort. It's acting as a fortress for the rest of Europe. Already this conflict is threatening to spill over to the neighboring Moldova with the Transnistria area, which is essentially a protectorate of the Russian Federation. Russia has threatened the Baltic state. It has threatened Poland, So there is I think, correct understanding right now that as much as it costs now, and the cost is actually pretty amazing, pretty revolutionary. There's the level of, announced assistance. Once again, I'm fully convinced that this is a relatively small price to pay compared to what, could happen should Vladimir Putin be, allowed to run over Ukraine.
One of the things that Vladimir Putin has asserted is that the West is fighting a proxy war in Ukraine. I know that term has a lot of connotations for a lot of different people, depending on how you view, say, the war in Yemen as a proxy war. But in terms of Western nations having Ukraine, I think the implication that Putin is making is do their dirty work for them. How do we strike that balance in terms of the right role for the Ukrainians and the right role for the rest of the West?
Well, I think the West already has done that. It has ruled out sending boots on the ground. They have enabled Ukrainians to defend themselves. They ruled out closing the airspace of Ukraine, which would have been tantamount to declaring a war directly on Russia. So they instead have enabled Ukrainians with some, surface-to-air systems such as S-300s. I had a chance to meet with some of the American generals, including General David Petraeus and Mattis at the Munich Security Conference, literally a few days before the war started. And they told me, Peter, we are ready. America will be ready to stand by Ukraine if Ukrainians show that they can fight, they can use these weapons. So obviously, it was coming on the heels of the very, shameful, situation in Afghanistan with the president there ran away after a few days without, essentially without a shot fired. Ukrainians showed that they could do it, and so I think this is a very much a fair fight. And what we're hearing from the Russians now Vladimir Putin threatening essentially nuclear, war, World War III, is sign of a desperation on the part of the Russians that they're not going to be able to win a conventional war against an admittedly much weaker opponent, up until now, at least.
And before I have to let you go, I wonder what you make of Western officials like Secretary of State Antony Blinken, the Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. You just had the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who visited Ukraine on the ground, who visited Kiev. What impact does that have? What message does that send?
Well, first of all, it sends a strong message that it's a vote of confidence that, these folks are visiting the capital of Ukraine. Americans have announced that they will be appointing a new ambassador. Finally, after essentially 2 years, of not having an ambassador, President Biden is going ahead with the new appointment. And Kiev is still not a very safe place. Just literally a few hours ago, I come out of my apartment. I hear these two incredible explosions, I'm just going to show you right here, I'm not even supposed to take this picture. It's actually, due to rules of war. But I mean, this was a hit on a residential building and one on apparently a factory. And yet Guterres is here, the two high-level American officials. This is a show of confidence that Ukraine has already achieved its major victory. It has, kept its statehood. And Vladimir Putin's original goal, as we saw on February 24th, was to get rid of the idea of an independent Ukraine. And independent Ukraine has won that crucial battle.
Before I let you go, since you mentioned those strikes, those two strikes we heard about earlier today in Kiev, what's the mood around the city as you see it? I know that you are bullish on Ukraine's future and its capacity to prevail in this war, but it's got to be tense. It's got to be kind of scary right now just for everyday people.
I mean, yes. I mean, this is our infrastructure. I mean, I'm not sure if there were any dead in those strikes, but a factory suffered a hit, and this happens on a daily basis. As far as the mood, I came out. I mean, I heard it like literally it was 5 blocks away. People are just going about their business. People have gotten used to it. The one major miscalculation Vladimir Putin has made is that he would cow Ukrainians, bring them to their knees, scare them, make them run to him. And beg him for some kind of a concession, some kind of an agreement. Let's negotiate this thing. This ain't happening. I can assure you. All he's achieving with this is he's making Ukrainians more implacable, angrier, and absolutely, and ever against the idea of ever becoming part of Russia or becoming friendly with Russia. This enmity will last for generations.
Peter Zalmayev of the Eurasia Democracy Initiative, thanks for making time for us. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Still to come, a COVID vaccine for babies and toddlers could be on the way. We'll explain. But first, today is Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day. In Poland, survivors of Auschwitz and other concentration camps gathered for the March of the Living. Poland's President Andrzej Duda used the occasion to condemn Russian aggression. And as is customary on this day, sirens blared throughout Israel. That nation paused to remember 6 million Jews the Nazis murdered during World War II. And in Dallas, this day of remembrance became a memorial in honor of a local advocate for survivors. Max Globin co-founded the Dallas Holocaust and Human Rights Museum. He was born in Poland in 1928. The Nazis sent him to a number of concentration camps. He was even put through a death march. The museum opened its permanent location in downtown Dallas in 2019. Max Globin's family tells the Dallas Morning News he died earlier today of complications from cancer. He lived to be 94. This is Now Tonight from NBC News. The U.S. is getting used to COVID no longer being a pandemic, but becoming endemic, becoming part of life. Vaccines are a big part of that, but children under the age of 5 cannot get vaccinated yet. Well, now Moderna is seeking FDA authorization for its vaccine for kids under 6. The dosage for young children is about a quarter of what adults get. The regimen calls for 2 doses of 25 micrograms 4 weeks apart. Trial data shows that the vaccine is about 51% effective for kids between 6 months and 2 years old. It was 37% effective for kids from 2 to 5. That's pretty low, but Moderna's chief medical officer says that is because of how contagious the Omicron variant is. In fact, the CDC says that during the Omicron surge, young children were hospitalized 5 times more than during the Delta variant surge. And by February, about 75% of all kids and teenagers had been infected by the virus. Today, President Biden emphasized that America's fight against COVID is not over yet.
We must also not let our guard down in our fight against COVID-19 at home and abroad. That's why I'm again urging Congress to act on my request for $22.5 billion in emergency resources so the American people can continue to protect themselves from COVID-19.
Meanwhile, Democratic lawmakers are facing some backlash for trying to tie COVID funding to a Ukraine aid package. The president says the COVID portion will be used for antiviral pills and life-saving treatments. Let's get into all of this with NBC News medical contributor Dr. Kavita Patel. And Dr. Patel, let's start with this Moderna vaccine. What do you think are the main things that parents need to know about this? And again, this is just an application at this point. It's a little ways off from being authorized, but what should parents know at this point?
Yeah, Joshua, for parents who have been waiting for several years now, really for something to offer, what they need to know is that this is the initiation of the application. Moderna has already announced that they hope to finish that application in the coming 10 days or so, and that will then trigger the prompt kind of review by the FDA. So we could hopefully see optimistically shots in arms maybe as soon as the end of May, possibly more realistically June, which I know is just cold comfort, Joshua, for people who've been waiting, but it's news and it's been good news.
There was a survey from the Kaiser Family Foundation back in February that asked parents of kids under 5 whether or not they would get their kids vaccinated. 21% said they'd get them vaccinated right away. 26% said they'd wait and see. 15% say they'd only do it if it was required. The plurality, 35%, said definitely not. Now, granted, more parents said that they were inclined to than not to, but what do you make of this array of responses?
I think the array of responses reflect a bit of the confusion around whether or not children actually need a vaccine. We've heard a lot of narratives of children don't get it as bad as adults. It's not that severe. It's pretty mild. That would lead some parents to conclude, hey, I don't need to give my child a vaccine. Add to that, Joshua, a great deal of misinformation and just this also, unfortunately, lies about this having, leading to other diseases or causing deaths and scaring parents. It's not crazy to think a third of parents have said, no, not for me. That does change. We've seen this in past vaccines as well, Joshua. It does change over time as more education and more awareness come to the issue.
Well, and, there's a lot we still don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Patel, but there's still a lot we don't know about the long-term downstream effects of this virus. I mean, if you get chickenpox as a kid, you can get shingles as an adult. If you break your leg as a kid, you have a fracture in that bone that could turn into who knows what as you age. Like there's a whole lot about getting a malady as a child that can absolutely affect you down the line in ways you could never predict.
Especially a novel virus that for every turn, it feels like you and I have spoken over the years now, and we sense that we're surprised, but we shouldn't be surprised. This is a virus that mutates, doesn't care about our politics, doesn't care how tired we might be about masks or mandates, and it's just trying to survive. And survive it has. And so that's the other point I want to make, that these numbers, 37 and 51%, might sound low, but it's all about Omicron. Even our adult doses of vaccines are in about the same ballpark, Joshua, for holding up against Omicron in the 40s. And so all told, we have better protection than zero with vaccines, but you still have to think about, just like you said, long-term consequences if you want to avoid getting the infection at all and what that means for your family.
I do understand, though, why some parents get confused in terms of the numbers of all this, and I could use some help parsing this. From what I understand from the data that Moderna's chief medical officer released, the 51% that we mentioned has to do with preventing kids from getting COVID. But when we talk about adult vaccines earlier in the pandemic, we said 95% effective, 97% effective. Right. We're talking about against deaths and hospitalizations. So these are slightly, if I'm remembering right, slightly different metrics.
Yeah, they are. But also, I do want to say that they're different metrics, but those same efficacy clinical points, to your point, hospitalizations and deaths, even with Omicron with adults, has been reduced from the 90s to the 70s to even after only 2 doses, the 40s. And so I just want to emphasize it's what we've been calling waning immunity. We see that with the adult doses. But you're right, the metrics are different. We don't see as many hospitalizations and deaths in children. So this is against kind of infections writ large in children versus hospitalizations and death. But infections in young children, Joshua, have been leading to that MISC, the inflammatory syndrome in children that we're really concerned about, that we usually see about a month to 6 weeks after infection. So all in, as you said, hospitalizations in children going up, more infections in children. Having a vaccine that's safe and effective, even if it's in the 30s to 50s, is incredible.
Before I have to let you go, I should ask you about this $22.5 billion aid package that the administration is asking for. Nationwide, we've been seeing COVID on the rise. Recently, in the last 2 weeks, we've seen cases go up about 60%, 60%, averaging about 52,000 cases per day. But deaths are down about 27%. So it looks like we're moving in the right direction. And that kind of speaks to what Dr. Fauci was saying this week in terms of shifting out of the full-blown pandemic phase of COVID. What is your sense of where the funding needs to be spent right now?
Yeah, but let's look at why we're in this phase. It's because we have been trying to do a better job on vaccines and boosters. It's not perfect, but Joshua, it's getting better and better as we educate more Americans and they are willing to do it. But we need to have this funding to not only continue to be able to offer vaccines, but treatments as well. We have an incredible array of treatments that we didn't even think we would have 6 months ago. Pills, IV antivirals, other drugs on the horizon. But we need to have a stockpile, a supply. We don't want to have shortages and have to avoid giving it to people because we don't have enough supply. And then we still have people who are turned away. As of early April, we have not been able to pay for some of these treatments and vaccines for uninsured Americans. And if we have someone who's positive, gets infected, and then spreads that, it's not only a harm to them, but it's just a harm to the progress we've made that Dr. Fauci has highlighted. So we want to stay on the right path. Decrease deaths, decrease hospitalizations. But we have to remember how we got here and continue to fund public health measures to stay on that course.
Dr. Kavita Patel, always good to see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, the FDA is taking on another respiratory killer, cigarettes. Today, the agency says it is moving closer to banning menthol cigarettes and cigars. This could make a huge difference, especially for African Americans. Roughly 85% of black smokers say they smoke menthols. Only about 30% of white smokers use them. 1/3 of all the cigarettes sold in the U.S. are menthols. The mint flavor has been heavily marketed to black consumers over the years as a smoother cigarette. That can also make them harder to quit, as if quitting smoking was not hard enough. Now, this ban has been a long time coming. Last April, President Biden pledged to ban menthol cigarettes. The FDA said that getting rid of them could save up to 650,000 lives over the next 40 years. A statement from the Altria Group, the company formerly known as Philip Morris, called for harm reduction, not prohibition. The company added that banning these products will feed a black market without regulations like age limits. Altria has been pivoting towards smoking cessation products and tobacco alternatives. Up next, college enrollment is dropping and college costs are rising. We'll take a closer look. And President Biden is considering student loan forgiveness. But will he give the $50,000 that some advocates are asking for? That's all just ahead. Stay close. It has been more than 2 years since some folks across the U.S. made a student loan payment. Maybe you too. Right now, federal loans are suspended until the end of August. President Biden now says that soon he could decide on forgiving part of that debt.
I am considering dealing with some debt reduction. I am not considering $50,000 debt reduction, but I'm in the process of taking a hard look at whether or not there will be additional debt forgiveness.
Now, the president says he'll have an answer in the coming weeks. And just to be clear, this is only for federal loans. Many private loans continued to collect interest. Student debt forgiveness was part of Joe Biden's presidential campaign. One of his opponents, Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, promised $50,000 worth of debt reduction. As you heard, Mr. Biden has said repeatedly, including today, that he will not forgive that much, but he's been facing a lot of pressure from Democrats and young voters to do just that, or at least to act on his campaign promise. About 45 million Americans owe a total of almost $1.7 trillion of student debt. It is that time of year when college acceptance letters go out across the U.S., but a growing number of students are shifting their plans, taking time off instead of enrolling right away. Some experts call it the biggest decline in college enrollment in nearly a half century, and it could have some alarming consequences. But considering what college students pay these days, how hard it is to pay down your loans, and what graduates earn, can you blame them? NBC Chief Education Correspondent Rahema Ellis has the story.
Learning during the pandemic was Brianne Steinman's toughest test.
The first year, it was chaotic.
But despite the stress, she got mostly A's and was accepted to Indiana University of Pennsylvania.
I'm very excited, I am, to go to college.
But not right away, and she's not alone. Research shows a dramatic decline of nearly 1 million students in colleges nationwide, almost double the number in 2019 before the start of the pandemic. Community colleges hit the hardest with a 13% drop-off from pre-pandemic enrollment levels.
That's very concerning.
Concerning, researchers say, because it's the most affordable college opportunity for many students and a way out of poverty. They also point out the decline is more widespread than ever before.
And now it's across the board, 2-year and 4-year colleges.
That's right. This is suggesting that it's not just about the pandemic anymore. It starts to look more and more like students are really questioning the value of going to college at all, rather than just whether this is a good time to go to college.
One reason, wages are going up even without a college degree. Walmart's now offering its first-year truck drivers $95,000 to $110,000 a year, up from $87,000.
What we're seeing in the data today is that more and more students are choosing what may be short-term gains.
In addition, he's concerned that declining enrollment in science-based classes could have dire consequences overall.
If we don't rapidly reverse these rates of change in majors that are in high demand even today, like computer science and engineering, I don't think we have a very bright future in terms of our ability to maintain a high-tech economy in the future.
But Brianne, a member of the Arapaho and Shoshone tribe, says her future includes earning money during a gap year to help pay for nursing school.
I'm so dedicated to going to college because you need degrees to work like in the medical field.
One student staying on course to make her dream come true.
That was NBC's Rahema Ellis reporting. We will get to some of today's other top stories in just a moment, including an update on the feud between Disney World and Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis, the public hearing schedule for the House committee investigating the January 6th insurrection, and why the lack of snow on California's mountains is hurting farmers in its Central Valley. Let's start your headlines with the House investigation into the attack on the U.S. Capitol. That investigation is winding up, and now we have a timeline for the public hearings to reveal the findings. Today, NBC's Ali Vitale caught up with the Select Committee's chairman, Benny Thompson.
And you said earlier as many as 8 hearings now? Is that a done deal? You're still working through that?
Well, 8 is the number at this point, and we are moving forward for June hearing.
Are you going to start at the beginning of the month?
At this point, the first hearing is June 9th. It'll be a combination of exhibits, staff testimony, outside witnesses, just kind of a combination.
So, as you heard from the chair, the committee plans to hold at least 8 days of public hearings starting on June 9th. That is 6 weeks from today. We'll have coverage here on NBC News Now. The standoff between Walt Disney World and Florida's Republican lawmakers could get really expensive. Last week, Governor Ron DeSantis signed a bill to dissolve Disney World's self-governing jurisdiction. The Reedy Creek Improvement District lets the resort operate kind of like its own county. Critics said the district expenses could land on taxpayers as a result. And now a letter to investors suggests that might indeed happen. Reedy Creek says that its charter requires the state of Florida to pay off the district's extensive debts before dissolving it. And those could run upwards of $1 billion. Supporters of the dissolution say the costs could be covered by revenues coming to Reedy Creek for those expenses. Today may be one of the last times we get a quarterly earnings report from Twitter. Everything could change if Elon Musk acquires it. This morning, Twitter reported revenue of $1.2 billion in the first 3 months of the year. That was just shy of the $1.23 billion that was expected, but it's up 16% from last year. Twitter also reported that its number of daily users grew. 229 million active users logged on each day. That's up about 14 million from last quarter. Elon Musk's acquisition of Twitter could be finalized in the next 3 to 6 months. And we know you have thoughts and questions about this buyout, so send them our way, because tomorrow our experts will be answering those questions. We're at NBC Now Tonight on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. You can also leave us a brief but brilliant voicemail, 888-575-2NBC. That's 888-575-2622. Or email us nowtonight@nbcnews.com. Time now for our special series, The Climate Challenge. This time we head to the Sierra Nevada mountains in Northern California. The range's name is Spanish for snowy mountains. But this spring, they're not too snowy, and that is a big problem because that melted snow is a key source of California's drinking water. The state is facing one of the smallest springtime snowpacks in its history. But California is not alone in its worries over the water supply. Most of the western U.S. is currently experiencing some form of drought. NBC Nightly News anchor Lester Holt has more on what this means for the farmers who feed America.
In California's San Joaquin Valley, these are days of hard choices for farmers.
We had to cut out actually a couple of crops, and we've had to cut back on our melon program.
Joe Del Bosque has operated his farm since 1985.
This, I think, is the worst year we've ever had.
He's right. Water officials believe the past 3 years could end up as the driest in California's history.
I look out here and I see a beautiful day by the lake. What do you see when you look at this?
I see a dangerously low reservoir. I mean, we are at ground zero for the California drought.
The state's reservoirs are alarmingly low. This is Lake Castaic, north of Los Angeles, now sitting at 53% capacity. To give you some perspective, in good times, the water should be nearly to the top of that dam.
California's Natural Resources Secretary Wade Crowfoot says the snowpack in Northern California's Sierra Nevada mountains says it all.
What do the last measurements tell you?
Well, the last measurements are pretty grim. We have a lot less snowpack than we've had in the past due to hotter winter temperatures. And then due to hotter spring and summer temperatures, more of that snow is either absorbing into very dry soils or evaporating into warm air.
Just this week, a water supplier to 6 million Southern Californians declared an emergency, severely limiting non-essential water use. The drought impacting parched farmlands and American dinner tables.
The tomatoes, the sweet corn, melons, things that we would normally have at the stores aren't going to be grown in the quantity this year than we're used to.
California provides 2/3 of the U.S. supply of fruits and nuts.
We're blessed with this Mediterranean-type climate here in California that nobody else has. And we can grow crops here that can't grow anywhere else.
Farmer Bill Diedrich grows tomatoes, but not now.
No tomatoes this year because this water has got to be put to use on other crops that, for us, is less risky.
Many farms partly rely on groundwater, but if it's not stored in the good years, it can leave fields like this high and dry in the bad years. Now, state officials are under pressure to do something.
We've heard from farmers who complain that there's not enough being done to capture the water that falls during the good years?
Well, they have a good point. We have to do more to ensure that when we do receive these large winter storms, that we're capturing water, not only in our surface reservoirs, but pumping that water back underground. So, for example, we are investing billions of dollars in recharging groundwater basins, and those are infrastructure projects.
Time may have run out.
We're not looking down the road 5 years or 10 or 20 years. And what we're seeing is a diminished capacity to feed our own people. And that's the tragedy here. We don't have the water to grow the food that we could be growing here that makes it to the store that we all shop at.
Hard times, hard choices. But for Joe Del Bosque, an unshaken belief in this land.
I never fail to just love what I see when we're planting. See some plants there in this great soil. These soils in this area produces some of the best melons in the country. And I'm very proud to be a part of that.
That was NBC's Lester Holt reporting. We will talk sports before we go, starting with the NFL draft in Las Vegas. We'll tell you the big names to look out for and the early picks in the first round. Plus, U.S. Olympic figure skater Vincent Zhou is making a big comeback. We'll see what he's been up to since testing positive for COVID in Beijing. The NFL draft is underway, and the first pick is in. The Jacksonville Jaguars have selected Travon Walker. He's a defensive end from the University of Georgia. More than 250 players will hear their names called over 7 rounds of the draft. Jacksonville is tied with Kansas City for the most picks at 12. Las Vegas is hosting the draft for the very first time. More than 600,000 fans are expected to attend the festivities on the Strip over the next 3 days. COVID canceled plans for Vegas to host 2 years ago. When you think about it, COVID has disrupted a lot of our sports plans, including some that athletes had prepared their whole lives for. That's what happened to U.S. figure skater Vincent Zhou at the Beijing Olympics.
I have tested positive for COVID-19, and unfortunately, I will have to withdraw from the individual event starting tomorrow. I've isolated myself so much that the loneliness I felt in the last month or two has been crushing at times. The enormity of the situation, the pain of it all is it's pretty insane.
But that pain would fuel his determination to make a comeback. And last month, the 21-year-old placed third at the World Championships. Now, he's finished better than third before, but Zhao called it one of his most meaningful performances. He posted on Instagram, quote, "When I made the decision to compete at Worlds, it was due to one thought, and one thought alone, that I didn't want to live the rest of my life with the regret that I didn't at least try," unquote. Vincent Zhou is a 2-time Olympian and 2-time world medalist, and he joins us now. Mr. Zhou, welcome to the program. Good to have you with us.
Thank you so much. Good to be here.
Let me start with the World Championships and that third-place finish and how you reflect on that now. You wrote that Instagram post saying you didn't want to live with the regret that you didn't at least try. Now that you have made that try, placed third, how does it feel in retrospect?
This is one of the biggest personal accomplishments of my career. I was struggling very much after the Olympics, both physically and mentally, because the come down of everything, not being able to train properly, and then sort of the mental destruction, if you will, that followed after what happened at the Olympics made it very difficult for me to just get up and get going again. So being able to achieve what I did at Worlds was just like going there was like a blind leap of faith. And as I said in my post, as you just said, I didn't want to live with the regret that I didn't at least try to compete at Worlds. And when you compete without that extra pressure on your shoulders, when you get there and you just feel free and, I got myself here, let's just see what happens. That's like one of the best places to be in.
Talk about that turnaround from the COVID test. And I remember when that story broke and I was like, damn, I felt so, my heart went out because I knew how hard it is to kind of rev yourself up for something like that and then just have to like stop all of a sudden. Talk about the process of turning that around and getting ready to go compete at Worlds. What was that like?
Honestly, I almost did not go to compete at Worlds. The day after we were supposed to confirm our flight to France, where Worlds was, my parents were still talking to me about, let's go on vacation next week. And growing up with a very strict skating mom who, never, like saying no and giving up was never an option, to hear that was just really jarring. And once that seed of doubt was planted in my head, it was very difficult for me to move past it. So it took every bit of will in my power to pack my bags and step on the plane. And I wasn't even, training well. I wasn't training much at all on the ice leading up to Worlds because I wasn't mentally able to, make myself even go near my skates some days. My mom was very scared that I was on the verge of depression, and I knew that if I had a bad result at Worlds, it could make things much worse. So going there was one of the bravest things I've ever done, and I'm really proud of myself, not just for how Worlds turned out, but for going in the first place.
What made you go? Was it a moment of motivation? Did you just decide to just sort of embrace the suck and go for it anyway, whether it sucked or not? Like, what finally got you there?
Well, I reiterate one more time that it's the singular thought of not wanting to regret not giving it a shot. I've always been the type to, no matter how bad things are looking, just give it one last-ditch effort. And, it was no different here, so.
I appreciate you leaning in on that point, because I feel like part of the conversation we've had around especially the Olympics is how the hype of the games kind of creates this caricature of athletes like yourself compared to the reality of who you are as a person, dealing with a lot of the same stuff that everybody deals with. Mikaela Shiffrin dropped a piece today in the Players Tribune about how she coped with the death of her father in 2020, right up through the Beijing Olympics, and then after that in the World Cup. Here's part of what she wrote in that piece. She wrote, quote, "After Beijing, when I turned things around and ended up winning the World Cup, people would say things to me like, Mikaela, now that you're in a much better place, and I never said it out loud, but I would always think, am I? We equate winning with being okay and failure with being not okay. The real truth is that I'm neither okay nor not okay. It really depends on the day, and it has almost nothing to do with how fast I came down a mountain." That's from Mikaela Shiffrin's piece in the Players Tribune. We will share that out online at NBC Now tonight. But I wonder, based on that piece, how you manage people's perceptions of your athletic performance when you are a three-dimensional person like everyone else, dealing with what everyone else is dealing with.
Well, that's a really great piece of insight from Mikaela, and it's very true that when you go from what you typically see from athletes on television, the couple minutes you have under the spotlight, to, what you see in daily training or what you see in the locker room, it's completely different. I think that what you see in competition is just the tip of the iceberg, and also the way we perceive competition results. The way the public perceives competition results is that competition results are everything. They don't really care about the training or, the long process leading up to a competition. But we spend, hours, days, weeks, months, years training for a competition. In the case of the Olympics, we spend our entire life training for a 3 or 4 minute program on the ice, and that 3 or 4 minutes is all that people see. So it's definitely. It's easy to judge, to make quick judgments about the very short period of time that they see us on screen, but athletes, like you said, are humans. We, live our day-to-day lives working hard and going through the same struggles that everyone else does, and we aren't defined by our results. And I refuse to be defined by, testing positive for COVID at the Olympics. I made the best of my situation. I moved forward, and I was able to come out with a medal from Worlds.
I know there's a lot of critique about the hype around the Olympics, which our parent company is very much involved in, but I also appreciate you being willing to talk about the flip side of this, Michaela Schifrin talking about the flip side of this, and we wish you all the best. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Vincent Zhou, we really appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you for making time for us. Remember to send us your stories and questions about Twitter and free speech for tomorrow's show. We're at NBC Now Tonight on Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. Leave us a voicemail or send us an email. But until we meet again, I'm Joshua Johnson. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.